Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about not really a full lesson plan, but at least an activity for helping your students develop more depth and complexity to their research questions. So I'm teaching a project right now at time of filming where students are writing about a philosophical issue. The problem is that philosophy is difficult. And this is not a philosophy course. I'm teaching a first-year writing course. So I want students to think in as much depth as they are capable of thinking given the limited time and resources of this course. So what I had them do, basically, the idea was a brainstorming exercise where they develop additional questions beyond the main research question that they're asking, beyond the main thing that they're interested in investigating. So what I did in class was I gave them a topic. And in this case, it was the question, is cancel culture a serious problem in the US? And what I had them do was talk to the people around them and come up with at least 3 additional questions they would want to investigate to give a good answer to that question. So 3 further things to ask, 3 further things to research, to find out, etc., etc. The great benefit of this is it pushes them beyond binary thinking. And I'd given my students a set of potential topics for this video project, this philosophical video project. All of them were set up as binaries. So things like, is art or science more important for humanity? Are the benefits of AI greater than the dangers? Should religion be abolished? Things like this. But I think student writers especially often come to the research process from these sort of binary questions where there are 2 clear, distinct answers. And so this is a good exercise for getting them to think more about what their topics can become, right? Because not only philosophy, but university level research and critical thinking in general goes beyond the scope of the either or fallacy, right? Either it's this or it's this. Well, not necessarily, because usually there's multiple options. It's not even just that there's usually a 3rd option. There's a 4th and a 5th and a 6th and a nth option, just on and on and on, because things in the world are complex. And so when you ask your students to pose additional questions, additional information they would need to gather, this can be a really good way of sort of getting their brains working about what else they need to know in order to answer a question. Even if they end up answering the binary question, you're going to push them to a more sophisticated argument. So what I did was I put the question up on the board. Is cancel culture a serious problem in the US? Gave them a few minutes to work with the people around them, and then we collected up questions that they had come up with, and I wrote them on the board. So they came up with some things that I think are very, very basic questions, basic like philosophical or research questions, but really, really important. So things like, what is cancel culture? How do we determine if a problem is serious? Who's affected by cancel culture? Things like this. Things that are like fundamental, like you would really kind of need to know this. But again, these are important things. They're important sort of baselines. And so one of the things that I did as I was putting these questions up on the board is talked about why this might be an important question to investigate. So what is cancel culture? This is a really important question if we're trying to determine whether it's a serious problem in the US, because when we talk to one another about political or hot button issues, we often use the same words to mean different things. So we need to determine what we actually mean by cancel culture. if we're going to say, yes, it's a serious problem, or no, it's not a serious problem, we need to have some sort of metric for determining whether or not it is serious. These kinds of things. So like, this is one of the elements is, as they were giving me these questions, I'm trying to sort of expand on them and say, okay, here's how this knowledge would benefit you. And then some of the questions were a little more sophisticated. They were somewhat more abstract or in depth. Things like, what's the social use of canceling? What are the long-term versus the short-term effects? So this is a really, really good approach. And again, you talk through all of these questions and why they would give you additional useful information. So this is a really good activity, I think. If you can use this as a model and then encourage your students to do this on their own, with their own research questions, you're probably going to get deeper and more sophisticated, more interesting arguments, because now they have a practical model that they have done themselves for how to expand on what they're writing about. And again, this is, I think, part of modeling good scholarly practice, because this is something that we as scholars, we as critical thinkers, we as writers do. We investigate questions beyond the sort of initial research question we pose, but that's a habit that we want to train our students to do. And by having them come up with these questions and then encouraging them to do that on their own for their own research question, we can start laying that foundation.